Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 24 driver career mode with myself driving for Sauber in our rookie season of Formula 1. If you did miss the last episode, Lando Norris claimed a crucial victory in Mexico and Piastri made a McLaren 1-2, which was another crucial finish for the Constructors' World Championship, and Lewis Hamilton in P3 making it back-to-back podiums for himself. And Max Verstappen, the current championship leader, did not finish the Grand Prix, which left a giant swing in the championship with Lando Norris now leading the Drivers' Championship and McLaren continuing to pull away in the Battle of the Constructors. Myself and Bottas both finished within the points, a P8 and a P9 for ourselves. And as I said before, Norris, he's now in the game. He's leading the way. He's 13 points clear of Max Verstappen. And we're going to go straight into some contract rumours. So it looks like Mercedes may be looking for some driver changes, which is interesting considering both drivers have been on really good form recently. They've both been consistently on the podium. It's interesting to know they haven't really been hitting their targets. So what Mercedes will do going to next season, we'll have to wait and see. So we're going to go straight into some more update saving here. So we're going to continue looking in the durability because Valtteri is looking in the other department. So we're going to save the ICE reliability testing and the MGUH improved materials as well. So that'll be interesting to see how they keep the car performing into next season. The manufacturing expert, we're going to take a look here. Keep the tyres below a certain temperature. Wind tunnel engineer, average corner speed. Quality insurance tester, 2 sessions without a flashback. Strategy analysis, 2 practice programs to be completed in practice as well. And remember, it's a sprint race weekend, so we do only have the one practice session to do it all in. And we're going to take a look at the weather now. So it's going to be mixed conditions over the course of the weekend. So sprint qualifying, the sprint race looking sunny, but the main qualifying and the Grand Prix looking like there could be some rain involved, which will definitely shake up the field just a little bit. And in the car performance world, no changes so far. All the teams still trying to save all the upgrades as possible with the new performance regulations coming in for next season. McLaren's still the fastest car, Mercedes right behind him. Then it's close between Red Bull, Aston Martin and Ferrari, and then it's Sauber. We find ourselves leading the Formula B pack, followed by Williams, Haas and RB, and also Alpine as we now get ready for sprint qualifying.
It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
And it's going to be quite interesting to see where we could possibly qualify here for the sprint race, as we'll be starting on the medium tyre. So as we come across the line to try and finish our first flying lap, we're going to sit P13 at the moment. It's in 1 minute 8.1. And we're just behind the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz and the Alpine of Esteban Ocon is coming through this final real corner, the main corner. We lose so much time. We just clobber that inside curb, and we've gone from about 2.5 tenths up to we're going to be improving by only a couple of hundreds. So hopefully this is going to be enough, as we won't be able to do another flying lap here, and that puts us P12 for the minute. George Russell is fastest in SQ1 by 300ths of a second to Max Verstappen. Then Lando Norris in P3. He's only a tenth behind. Myself just getting into SQ2 by 300ths of a second in P15. Knocked out in SQ1. Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen, and Logan Sargent failing to make it to the next part of qualifying as we come across the line to start our first flying lap. We're going to hit the brakes and hit the apex. Actually take too much of that inside curve. Then you can see really unsettled the car through the mid part of the corner, and that is going to ruin the run all the way down here into turn 4, and we'll cross the line to maybe do about a mid 8, and it's going to be a low 8, so a 1 minute 8.1, and that's going to put us P14, not good enough to make it into SQ3 at the minutes. So we'll go around again for another fast lap here, and we cross the line for P13, so it's still not quite good enough to make it into the next part of qualifying. So that is us done for the sprint qualifying. Lando Norris is fastest in SQ2 by 0.004 of a second to George Russell. Max Verstappen, P3, 3/10 behind. Knocked out in SQ2. Oscar Piastri, which is a big name to go out. Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, myself, missing out by 0.2, and Nico Hulkenberg.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Hamilton, Leclerc, Perez, Stroll, Albon, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Sainz, Lightning, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Bottas, Sonoda, Magnussen, and Logan Sargent. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. Well, it's been a long time since I last worked with you. Good to see you again today. Anthony Davidson. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. Let's look at their season, and particularly against their teammate. Fair to say they've got the better of them more often than not. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? What do the final hours look like for them?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
It's not going to be easy to get another point-scoring finish from here, but give it your best shot.
And remembering that it's the top 8 that score points, hence why it's going to be much more difficult, because it's not a simple case of making it inside the top 10. Strategy-wise, we're just going to stick with the soft tie, kind of test it out to see if the soft tie is going to be any sort of tie that we could possibly use for the main Grand Prix. And it's lights out and we're off for the sprint here in Brazil. It's a pretty decent start. It's an absolutely horrific start for Oscar Piastri. He only goes backwards after a pretty poor qualifying. We're going to send it up the inside. It's currently 3 wide as we do make it through. A little bit of contact there with Pierre Gasly. We do get a warning for that one, but that is us now up into P12. We've got quite the run here on Carlos Sainz, who's in P11, and we're going to use a bit of slipstream here for Daniel Ricciardo, but Carlos Sainz must be deploying battery because that speed was absolutely insane for him to pull away so much. We run wide down at turn 4, and that is going to be our attack on Carlos Sainz done just for the moment. But as the field with Constantina coming up to the hill here, we're going to try and see if we can't line up a really late dive, and we're going to come from absolute miles behind and absolutely take it up the inside of Carlos Sainz here, but he's going to fight him. We're going to continue around the outside, try and get the better run here, and have another crack at it down the inside here to the final sector as we do just squeeze him out on the exit there, and that is us now up into P11. So hopefully we can try and just find these first 3 next positions, but unfortunately we're going to go the other way. We're going to go down the order, and we're going to run wide, slightly outbrake ourselves, which is now going to compromise Carlos Sainz here. So he's now under attack from the Haas of Nico Hulkenberg. So Sainz really struggling on these soft tyres. Maybe the Ferrari's just not the car to be on if you've got the soft tyres, as Nico will take it down the inside here at turn 4. And that is going to be Nico Hulkenberg now up into P12. Neither of them inside the points, as we've now got a possible change for the lead. George Russell, he's looking to get past the race leader, current race leader, Lando Norris, and he's going to have to go around the long way at turn 1, which will give him the inside for turn 2, and once again the outside for turn 3, and he's going to have to sit tight just for now, but Lando Norris will have the DRS due to that other detection zone, which now put George Russell, the attackee, under pressure from Max Verstappen. Verstappen will get the move on George Russell, as George Russell looking to take the lead, ends up falling down to P3, and while all of that was happening, we were overtaken by Nico Hulkenberg, and that's how Hulkenberg did it, just with a bit of DRS down the main straight, and easy done, and that is him up into P11. And back to the front of the field, Max Verstappen, after taking George Russell just a lap prior, he will now be looking to try and take Lando Norris's lead away from him. He'll go the inside at turn 1 rather than the outside, as George Russell attempted to do, and that is going to be Max Verstappen now the leader of the sprint race here. And as we saw before with George Russell, now it's Lando Norris's turn to be left vulnerable down this second DRS straight, and that is going to be him shafted out wide, and George Russell will take that P2 away from Lando Norris. And here's a replay of what happened again while all of this was happening at Carlos Sainz and taking his turn to get by us now again with just a bit of DRS down the main straight, and that is him now into P12. As we jump on board with ourselves here, Carlos Sainz now attacking Nico Hulkenberg. A bit of contact there going through turn 4, which is going to slow them both down on the exit here, deploying just a tiny little bit of battery to help us get out of the corner. And we have now caught right up to the back of the two of them, but we've run wide going through this fast uphill sweep, and Pierre Gasly did not need a second invitation to send it down the inside of us. Very opportunistic move there from the Frenchman, but we're going to fight it. we don't want to be losing out an extra position here, so we send it back down the inside, which will now give us the outside here, and we'll once again get the inside, and we'll try and squeeze him out wide, and we do that just right, and we will now take P13 back away from Pierre Gasly, but that could leave us vulnerable to the power of DRS now down the main straight, as George Russell's looking to take the lead away from Max Verstappen here with only a lap and a half to go down the inside of turn 4, and that is going to be the job done for George Russell to take away the lead of the sprint race from Max Verstappen. Back on board with ourselves as we start the final lap of this sprint race, and there's a lockup up ahead. It's Carlos Sainz, and he comes back across onto the track. We were running wide already as we were kind of put off by the amount of smoke, and we've now taken massive damage to our front wing, so we're going to have to try and limp it home in P12. We'll take the free position, but it's not nice to see more damage done to the car, but George Russell will claim victory just ahead of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris here in the sprint race for the Brazilian Grand Prix, and we'll also just hold off onto P12 against Carlos Sainz. So an absolute blindly end to this sprint race, and we just hold on to that P12 with the damage. As we now take a look at the results of the sprint race, the rest of the top 8 followed as Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Stroll, and Sergio Perez. Myself in the end, P12 again. That last lap damage really slowed us down in that last lap, which left us vulnerable down the main straight, but just held on from Carlos Sainz. Our teammate Valtteri Bottas ends up P16 in the end, also struggling a bit there for pace, and Kevin Magnussen, the only non-finisher.
It's a Saturday showdown. Anyone fancy some hot laps around Interlagos? It's qualifying day here for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix.
It's a very gloomy looking Brazilian Grand Prix circuit here in Interlagos, and as we get started here on our first flying lap, we've got Pierre Gasly on a slow lap right ahead of us, hoping he'll get out the way, but unfortunately he just parks it. Why does he just park it? That's one of the worst places on the circuit, just absolutely park it to try and get out of the way. So in return, we hold him up. We'll charge the battery, and we've gone again onto another lap, and we put it P10 at 1 minute 8 flat. And so that is a little bit faster than what we have done previously, but it's still not a fantastic lap. It's not good enough to get us into the next part of qualifying. We run deep through here as well, so we were looking about 2/10 better until this mistake. So we'll call it quits on this lap. We'll chuck on a fresh set of tyres, and we'll go out for another lap here. But you'll see the rain has now arrived as we still continue to send it, and we have a massive slide, and that is going to be us into the wall and out of qualifying here. So we're definitely now not making it into the next part of qualifying. If we take a look at a replay here of what happened, it's just a little bit of a slide going on. I corrected, and that just speared us directly into that concrete wall. A very unfortunate crash. We were trying to push it as if it was dry. The rain was coming in, and the grip just was not there to be able to be pushing it that fast. And so George Russell is fastest in Q1 by a second to Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz P3, he's also 1 second back. Our teammate Valtteri Bottas P9, he's 1.3 seconds back, making it through to Q2. Knocked out in qualifying 1. Pierre Gasly, myself in P17. Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, and Logan Sargent. So I really shot myself in the foot there, not getting a clean lap in early enough.
Welcome along then to where heroes and history are made. It's where the 2008 title was decided in the very final corner. And just 1 year later, Jenson Button stormed through from 14th on the grid to claim his one and only Drivers' Championship. It's time then for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Interlagos, always a very special race here in Brazil. It's a 2.7-mile circuit with 9 left turns and 6 right turns for a total of 15 corners. It's a wet one today as well, so grip and visibility will be at a premium, and the drivers will need to be careful coming up the hill in Sector 3, the scene of many an accident over the years. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Fernando Alonso completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Leclerc, Stroll, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Ocon, Norris, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Bottas, Magnussen, Gasly, Lightning, Hulkenberg, Sargent, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
We're at the back, but give it 100% and we can still come away with a decent result. I believe in you. Come on.
Good to know that Mark doesn't think that this Grand Prix is all but lost. And you'll notice there, Lando Norris, he's got some extra work ahead of himself to minimise the damage from Max Verstappen starting ahead of him. Luckily, Verstappen also struggled in qualifying, so not too much to try and make up there. But you'll see here, we've been playing around with the strategy. It's meant to be raining for the first part of this Grand Prix, which it already is. So we're starting on the mediums compared to the rest of the field starting on the hards. So hopefully these mediums will give us a bit of extra grip as we start the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's the main race on the Sunday, 36 laps ahead of us. As you can see there's just absolutely no grip, even on these a little bit stickier medium compound tyres compared to the hard tyre runners all the way around us. We're going to lose a couple of positions initially, but we're going to send it around the outside at turn 2, ride that X-curve and a massive tank slapper as we try and put down the power. So that's going to ruin any run that we possibly could have had onto Kevin Magnussen there. But that is us now up into P15, already up a couple of positions, as Lando Norris is currently sitting P10. So he has still got a little bit of work if he wants to try and get ahead of Max Verstappen to extend his championship lead. As you can see there, we've closed a little bit of that gap now to Kevin Magnussen, which could allow us to try and send it down the inside here for this move that we did in the sprint race, and that is going to be us up the inside there of Kevin Magnussen. But just like in the sprint race, the AI is going to be fighting it here. So on the exit, we're going to try and get the power down nice and early and sneak it also up the inside of Daniel Ricciardo. So kind of a 2-for-1 there as we finish the move on Kevin Magnussen, but get the move done also on Ricciardo. You can just see there is so little grip out here at the moment. These mediums, even the stickier mediums, are struggling in these kind of conditions, but it's just not quite wet enough for the intermediates as Daniel Ricciardo hits us under the brakes, just swerves back across us, and so we immediately get the move back done on him as a little revenge on our fellow countrymen, as Max Verstappen's now looking to make a move here on Lance Stroll, who is currently all the way up in P6, and he's going to send it down the inside here at turn 1, which should give him the outside for turn 2, but crucially the inside for turn 3 on the racing line, where there should be a little bit more grip in these sliding conditions, a little bit slippery it is out here at the moment. We've caught up to the back of Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda. Mark there telling us that there should only be 10 minutes left of this, so in theory we should have pretty much nailed this to the T, being on the mediums to start with and making it a one-stop onto the hards when the track should be a bit more dry. We get the move done on Yuki Tsunoda, so now we can focus on trying to catch up to Esteban Ocon, which Mark 100% agrees on as he gives us the objective. We've got 4 laps to try and not only catch up but pass Esteban Ocon, but it's not going to be the way it's going to go for us, as Yuki Tsunoda is actually going to get the move done, and you can see there Ocon's starting to drive away a little bit. He's 1.2 seconds up the road as Tsunoda uses some DRS to get by us, so hopefully we can use a bit of DRS to also try and get by him, maybe a bit of a DRS train, but unfortunately losing the rear end a little bit, trying to get onto the power, as Carlos Sainz is now looking to get by the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, and using the DRS there, he'll get it well and truly done into the braking zone, and that is going to be him up into P8. Perez and Norris round out the points as it stands for the moment. And our driver who really struggled in the sprint race, Kevin Magnussen, and he's struggling even more because not only did he not finish the sprint race due to engine issues, he won't make it past lap 8 here in the main Grand Prix. That engine has expired once again, so massive issues with the Ferrari power unit, and more importantly, the Ferrari power units that are being used by Haas at the moment. And that is going to be his day done very early on into this Grand Prix, as we get a massive amount of wheel spin coming out of the final corner here, which is going to leave us very vulnerable to our fellow countryman Daniel Ricciardo. We got by him after he hit us in the braking zone, and he's been able to stay behind for the time being, but it looks like this is going to be the stamp sent by Daniel Ricciardo, and he's going to be up into P13 now. That puts him using the DRS to get by us before he even really makes it to the braking zone. So I don't think I'm going to be able to catch Esteban Ocon at the moment, as per our objective from Mark says so. As Lando Norris is looking to finally try and make his way through the field here, he will send it down the inside of Sergio Perez. So the Red Bull looking to be struggling on these hard tyres. Max Verstappen's unable to really make any grounds. He's only made up the one position since the start of the Grand Prix. Sergio Perez falling through the field at the moment as we do fail our objective there. We could not get to Esteban Ocon to the point that he is well and truly driven off. He's a few corners ahead of us now, and so he's well out of the picture in our race as it stands, but time could change when these conditions start easing up a bit and more grip starts coming to the track. And we'll do a bit of an order check here as it stands after the opening 10 laps. So George Russell leads the way ahead of Fernando Alonso and Oscar Piastri, who rounds out the podiums. Then it's Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, and Sergio Perez rounds out the points. And then it's Esteban Ocon, the two RBs of Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo. Then it's myself in P14, Pierre Gasly, our teammate Valtteri Bottas in P16. Then it's Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, and Logan Sargent last on the road with Kevin Magnussen, the only non-finisher at the moment. As once again, coming out of this final corner, we're really struggling for a grip, and not only just the mid-corner, but also on the exit, just lots of wheel spin that we're getting out of there. So could we be vulnerable here to Pierre Gasly? We do have the DRS thanks to Daniel Ricciardo, and we do swerve across the track to try and defend from Gasly, but we run ourselves deep, and that is the only invitation Gasly needs to get himself back ahead of us. And we also get a massive amount of just weird oversteer through these next two corners, and that's going to possibly put us vulnerable as we do a bit of a weather report now. And as 5 to 10 minutes mark is saying that this weather's going to stay around, so the ramp here is definitely extending for the time period. And so maybe a little bit of tyre wear with the mediums as we get a massive tank going through what is normally a very easily flat corner, and that is a very strange amount of oversteer that we just got through there, and that has put us into the wall, and we have now got massive damage to the front wing. So now we kind of have to just come into the pit lane and put on the hard tyres, and hopefully we'll try and make these hard to go the distance all the way to the end as we take a look on board with our teammate here. So with the DRS, he was trying to make a move down the inside of turn 4. So we were now pulled off a little bit wide. So maybe the tyres just cooled off a little bit as we got off the racing line, maybe into a bit more extra moisture. And we just speared directly off. Like, I've been power sliding out of a heap of corners here. So the sliding and the oversteer is not really the issue here. It's just the really strange snap. We had a similar thing in qualifying, if you do recall, just further up the hill, but that was more, I was on slick tyres as the rain was really starting to fall. And this is the complete opposite. The rain's meant to be easing and the track's meant to be drying, but we still had that really awkward snap of oversteer. So we do bring it into the pit lane now to get this front wing repaired and also to go onto the hard tyres. So hopefully we can use a bit of extra grip from these hard tyres. Obviously the mediums are going to be wearing off, so the fresh hards, even though it's hards on a slightly damp track, hopefully it should be still providing a bit more grip for ourselves here. So put in some hot laps to try and see if we can't minimize this, what's going to be a well and truly over 30-second gap to the next car. 36 seconds, nearly 37, as Mark now wants us to achieve some fast lap times. So he's on the same page. We need to pump out some fast lap times, but at the same time, remember that we need to make these tyres last, and they're over half race distance now to go. And back to the front of the field is Fernando Alonso. He's looking to take a lead away from George Russell. Russell been pretty much leading the way for most of this Grand Prix in the first half of the race. He's not going to make it easy, though, for Fernando Alonso, trying to keep it side by side as they come up through the hill. But it's going to be Alonso that's going to sweep around the outside to take the lead away from George Russell. Oscar Piastri sits P3 at the moment, and we do complete that very fast lap that Mark was after the try and get these tyres not only up to temperature as we were coming out the pit lane, but to try and make sure that we can try and get that undercut going. As further up the field now, it is Lewis Hamilton's turn to try and make his way through the field around the outside of Oscar Piastri, but he locks it up and he runs very wide, and that's going to let Oscar Piastri off the hook. But now, not only does Hamilton have a gap to try and get back to Oscar, but he could be vulnerable to Charles Leclerc. We'll have to keep track of that battle as it goes, but we're now setting purple lap times here. The fastest lap of the Grand Prix on lap 17. We're going on to lap 17 as Lando Norris is now looking to try and get himself past his good friend here, Carlos Sainz, around the outside of turn 1. We'll give him the inside at turn 2. And is he going to be able to close the door on Carlos Sainz? No, he's going to keep it up the inside there of Lando Norris, and that is going to give him the DRS now. So is Lando now going to be vulnerable to one Sergio Perez? Sergio Perez down the inside to make it 3 wide here. Is he going to be able to get the both of them? And it looks like he will. And Carlos Sainz is going to keep it side by side with him, but could Sergio Perez pull off a move similar to Fernando Alonso just a couple of laps ago and swing it around the outside? No, he can't. Carlos Sainz will just hold on here to P8, but Sainz very opportunistic there, and Perez will now sit in P9 as while that was all going on, we did have another change for the lead here. George Russell down the inside at turn 4 on Carlos Sainz, and that was a much easier move to get it done. And George Russell now once again leads this Grand Prix. Back on board with ourselves here. We'll set another fastest lap of this Grand Prix. We're really enjoying these hard tyres at the moment, but is it going to be enough for us to try and start battling with some of the other cars around us? You can see that we've already gained roughly 5 seconds on Logan Sargent in these few laps we've been on the hards, as we set yet another purple lap time here as we use a bit of extra inside curb there, and that will unsettle us through the center S, but we'll keep going on it as now the first of the race leaders are in. Fernando Alonso out of P2. He'll come into the pit lane here, presumably to go onto the medium tyres. I can't see them doing a two-stop, going softs possibly, or even, a medium soft. So I would say they're going to go for the mediums for the remainder of the Grand Prix, and he does go onto the mediums as now the next lap. George Russell, he is in for his one and only stop, the race leader in, and it looks like Oscar Piastri there has gained a massive amount of time. Oscar Piastri is sitting P3. He was a little bit further back from Fernando Alonso, and it looks like Piastri has pretty much mitigated the gap that there was between him and George Russell, and as he comes out the pits, he's right behind George Russell now. So the McLaren crew done a really good job here with their strategy and also their pit stop to really bring Oscar back up to the back of Russell here, and we're going to have to now see where these two guys come out compared to Fernando Alonso. But it looks like Alonso is actually going to get the undercut done on him, and he has managed to pull ahead with a bit of nearly a 1.5 second lead to George Russell. So he's actually done a blinder of an opening lap here as we set another purple lap time here, as the other guys are now starting to come into the lane here, but is nowhere near enough for us to get close to him. So we're still about 10 seconds away from him, and now the pit cycle's done. We're going to do a bit of an order check here. So it's Fernando Alonso leading the way ahead of George Russell, then it's Oscar Piastri rounding out the podium, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Stroll, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, and Sergio Perez rounds out the points in P10. Then it's Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, our teammate Valtteri Bottas sits P13 at the minute. The other RB of Daniel Ricciardo, Alex Albon, Nico Hulkenberg, Pierre Gasly in P17, Logan Sargent P18, and ourselves after our big incident on lap 12 where we had to come in for early repairs, currently sit P9, 8.5 seconds away from Logan Sargent. As it's now lap 24, back on board with ourselves, Mark wants us to now avoid damaging our front wing, which I'm a bit confused about this request because that's what we've done for the last 12 laps. We have not been damaging our front wing since we did get it repaired, so maybe just a reminder while we're pushing to not damage it as we jump on board with Sergio Perez. He's going down the inside here of Carlos Sainz. Very opportunistic move. Carlos Sainz shut the jaw, but obviously not enough because Perez still found a way through on Carlos Sainz. So there is Sainz is looking to try and get himself back, and Perez will also give him a bit of a squeeze, not as much of a squeeze, and Sainz will use that open invitation to get himself back up into P9 and claim those few crucial points that Ferrari need to try and close down onto Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship, as George Russell's looking to take the lead away here from Fernando Alonso. He'll also go down the inside at turn 4 here, becoming quite the hotspot for overtakes, but Alonso doing really well here to keep it around the outside. But is Russell going to be able to swing it around the outside up the hill? He will be able to get the move completed on Fernando Alonso, and that will be him now taking the lead of this Grand Prix as we do manage to complete those amount of laps and not damage our front wing, and so that will sure keep the Sauber people very happy in the garage and knowing that I can push and not cause any damage. And on board here with Sergio Perez as he goes for a bit of a spin, trying to gain to Carlos Sainz, so maybe feeling the pressure there and the Constructors' Championship pressure to try and gain as many points as possible, and trying to gain on Carlos Sainz. He just loops it coming out of the final corner onto the main straight, so that is him now well and truly outside of the points. As while all of this is going on, Fernando Alonso, he's looking in the dying stage of this Grand Prix to try and take the victory away from George Russell. He takes the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix on lap 32 of 36, and now we fast forward all the way to 36, and it is George Russell. He's using the last lap of this Grand Prix to try and get the move done, as he did only a few races ago. And George Russell, just like he did in Kota, he will take the lead of the Grand Prix on the final lap of this race, and he will reign supreme here in Brazil and claim victory in Brazil. Alonso will join him on the podium, and so will Oscar Piastri. And for ourselves, it was all thrown away on lap 12, and even with the extra pace from the mediums, we just could not make it work in those conditions.
The British and the best on the track. It's George Russell who wins. While Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend, it's great to see them up on that podium once again.
And with that podium for Oscar Piastri, that will be very good for his Drivers' Championship. He may not be in the direct fight for the overall championship, but with this string of decent performances where Norris and Verstappen have been struggling. He's been really closing down that gap to the top two. So this podium, or when Verstappen was all the way down the order, and so was Lando Norris, this will also catapult his journey into possibly maybe trying to take P2 away from Max Verstappen. We'll have to see in the future races, but yeah, in the end, I just had absolutely no pace, so there was nothing I could really do, especially after my spin on lap 12. But the rest of the top 10, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Stroll, Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, and Esteban Ocon rounds out the points. Our teammate Valtteri Bottas was also struggling for pace. He's down in P17, and myself P19 after, and we're nearly a minute, we're over a minute behind, so we were nearly about to get lapped. So very concerning race, and Kevin Magnussen, the only non-finisher. Lando Norris leads the Drivers' Championship by 9 points to Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri with that podium, he continues to cut that gap down to himself and the top two, as I was saying before. Myself in P9, 16 points behind Fernando Alonso, and Bottas is P17. He's 9 points behind Yuki Tsunoda. McLaren, they lead the Constructors' Championship by 144 points to Red Bull. Ferrari now 66 points behind Red Bull, so they're also closing down that gap. Sauber P6, we're 60 points behind Aston Martin. As we now take a look at our driver ratings, so our experience, our racecraft, awareness, pace, they've all gone up in points, but we've lost some in the focus to give us an overall of level 85. Our driver recognition remains at 48% to our teammate Valtteri Bottas, and in our specialists, they've all gained very crucial points, considering we've had quite the horrid weekend here in Brazil. So very good to see that they've at least there's some good news coming out of this race weekend. And if you did enjoy that episode, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode where we go to the Las Vegas Strip for the Vegas Grand Prix. I'll see you then.